To the May Design Review Commission for the City of Germantown. Thank you for allowing us an extra hour to talk this evening and joining us at 7 o'clock. Our first item is to establish a quorum. Please call roll.
Mr. Laneweir?
Here.
Mr. Sherman?
Here.
Mr. Gibson?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Chairman Bruns?
I am here. Thank you. And now we would like to get an approval for the minutes of the April 24th, 2018 meeting. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Very good. Please call roll.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Laneweir?
Yes.
Chairman Bruns?
Yes. April minutes are approved. And for tonight's consent agenda, during executive session, we were able to discuss many of these items, and we're agreed to put a handful of these on the consent agenda. So item number 5 becomes 4A, and that is a sign package, a ground-mounted sign for the Crestwind Behavioral Health Center. Item number 6 becomes 4B for Regions Bank with an approval of a second wall sign. Item number 8 becomes 4C, which is the Shops of Saddle Creek South planned development, and that was a request for a final plan, parking lot expansion. Item number 9 becomes 4D, and that is Germantown Village Square, and that is for the approval of a storefront modification. So is there anyone on the commission or in the audience that would like to have any of these 4 items removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'd like to remind the commissioners that by voting on the consent agenda, you are agreeing to the items that have been reviewed and discussed in the executive session. These items have been agreed to by the applicants during the executive session as well. At this time, I will entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as modified.
I would like to modify your motion, if I may.
Oh, go right.
So, I'm looking at my old agenda here, sorry. Item 5, which becomes 4A, make a motion to approve that as presented. Item 6, which becomes 4B, there is a provision here for this additional region sign. They will be getting rid of a ground-mounted sign and adding a wall-mounted sign. This is to be a non-illuminated sign with a total square footage of 20 square feet for that sign. The total logo area for this particular sign will be, or actually the total logo area for the entire site will be 5.5 square feet, and the square footage for this particular logo on this new sign will be 0.9 square feet, if that is agreeable with the owner. So let's see, we are moving down to 4C. Shops of Saddle Creek. This is approval of a revised final plan for parking lot expansion. This is approved with the provision that the applicant come back after construction but before final approval. They need to come back and submit a revised landscape plan, and we are open for recommendations from them. What was presented we do not believe will work, and the staff and our committee will also have recommendations for them, but they will have to come back for a landscape plan approval. And I believe that's it. Is that correct?
No provisions to number 9. That is a question.
Okay, Germantown Village Square.
Well, I have a question on that. I mean, it's on final approval of what?
Final acceptance.
acceptance of the project.
Okay, final acceptance, okay,
I'll accept that
After
revision.
construction and prior to final acceptance.
Okay.
okay, fine.
And then item 9, which is 4D, that was approved outright. So,
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Please call roll.
Mr. Landwehr,
yes.
Mr. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Smith, Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Chairman Bruns.
Yes, the consent agenda is approved as read. Thank you for all the applicants working with us through those. You're welcome to leave if you were lucky enough to be on the consent agenda. If not, please join us for the remainder of the last two items.
Cleared out the room.
Thank you, Chairman Bruns. Item number 7 is the Apple Store. This is a request for a wall sign. Apple is located in Saddle Creek South Shopping Center. And this is currently how the Apple Store looks. There is no wall-mounted sign. They do have a wall graphic here on the side. What they are proposing is a wall-mounted sign here. It would be flush with the building facade. It would be recessed, and it would be internally illuminated, and it would be made of acrylic. The size of this sign is 5.5 square feet. It is a standalone logo. The size of the logo does fall within the City of Germantown sign ordinance provisions. For this request, the applicant is requesting 2 exceptions or waivers. The first one is a waiver from the Saddle Creek South sign policy. In the sign policy, it lists certain types of signs that are prohibited, such as acrylic or plastic that are translucent or opaque. This is translucent acrylic. However, the landlord did sign off on the sign. The other provision from which the applicant is asking a waiver is for a standalone logo. Per section 14-34E7D of the sign ordinance, it says that the business name shall be the primary element of a sign. A logo, if any, should appear secondary to a primary element of the sign, the name. There has been a precedent in the past with standalone logos. The previous Apple Store that was located in another section of Saddle Creek did have standalone logos as part of its signage. Presently, there are also some window graphics at the site that the applicant has been notified that they need to bring those into conformance. You are allowed window decals of 1 square feet that have the business name or other information about the business, not necessarily business slogans or other descriptive language. So those would have to be brought into conformance as well. This gives a detail of how the sign would be constructed. As I mentioned, it's recessed into the facade, and that shows the different elements of how it would be constructed. And I believe that is all. The applicant is not here to discuss the application.
Thank you.
Yep.
I believe we just had a couple questions about the construction of the sign and some of the other non-conforming items with the sign. So if the commission would speak to these, that would be good. And without anyone to respond, we're going to make them public and then make a decision on what we'd like to do with this case. So the first would be that the standalone, say again.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, would you like me to highlight some of the points that we went over in executive session?
If you would, please, yes.
So we did discuss this in executive session, and the commission decided that a waiver from the sign policy would be okay to allow this acrylic material, seeing that the landlord has already signed off on this request. So the acrylic would be okay. Also having a standalone logo, there is a precedent for it, particularly for this business, that would be also okay. The size of the logo conforms with the sign policy. favorable, and it was suggested that the sign be halo lit or backlit. Those were the main points that I had taken down from the executive session.
And I would agree with those as read. So, and our options at this point, without the applicant being present to either accept or deny, our request would be either to table, I suppose, for a June agenda, or that is one option. And do we go about that by motion? Okay.
Make a motion to table this application until next month.
I'll second.
Very good. Please call roll.
Discussion.
Discussion on that?
Discussion.
You can discuss the before motion.
Excuse me? Well.
Please call roll.
Okay. Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Lanweir?
Yes.
Chairman Bruns?
Yes. Now that we have a tabled topic there, that'll just reappear on our June agenda once.
Can I clarify with this then? So I will speak with the applicant, and I will go over the points that we discussed at executive session and see if they're agreeable to those, and if they will revise their request to that. And then hopefully they will either revise their request per what we've discussed and/or attend the June meeting. Is that what the commission is expecting through the tabling motion?
That would be what we're expecting. Is there, with a tabled motion, there's nothing to speed that process up other than a June official meeting? Okay, very good. Just wanted to clarify. Item number 10, please.
Thank you. Item number 10. This is 7540 North Street. This is a freestanding building built in 1900. It actually appears to be an old house that has been used for commercial uses. It's at the corner of North Street and West Street. The building is utilizing the underlying zoning of C2. The building would like to, the applicant would like to modify the site plan. You see here, they would like to add a deck and then also, in addition, a conference room. That would be in the area where there had previously been a drive-through. This was most recently used as a bank, and now it is vacant. That would be the major change to the site plan. The parking would stay the same. I looked in the code, and the parking requirement for a bank is 200 square feet, one space for every 200 square feet. This building is approximately 3,600 square feet, so the parking was under previously. The current use is the same parking requirement as a bank, so the intensity of the use is not changing in terms of their parking requirement. This is the landscaping plan layout. The landscaping is existing. It would not change. It is in an assortment of crepe myrtles, Japanese maple, juniper boxwood, and Indian paintbrush, maybe? Indian hawthorn? Right. Indian hawthorn. This shows you what the building looks like from the front right now. And these are the proposed building elevations. The proposed modification to the building would include hardy plank siding, which would be a beige color with a gray trim. During executive session, we looked at some of the paint samples. The deck would be of treated wood. There would also be a new roof put on with architectural shingles. And there would be some new windows and some new doors, as you see here. There's also a proposal to add some lighting. This would be the lighting fixture that would be added to the building. In executive session, we did discuss that there's some question about adding lighting here to this side, as this is an interior property line, and that there would be maybe some spillover from these lights onto the other property line. And also there was a question if there is any existing lighting in the parking lot or on the rear of the property. So the applicant can answer those questions here. A question from staff is also along the, you can't see it in this photo, but there is some brickwork along here, and then also some brickwork leading up to the front entrance, the steps. And the question is if the brick would remain or if it is being taken out or covered with the siding. That then wraps up the main points from staff. As I mentioned, the applicant is here to answer any questions about this project.
Thank you. If the applicant would please step forward for us and either give a presentation if you choose, or if you could field questions, please take the mic for us and state your name and address for the record. Absolutely.
Good
Both
afternoon.
state your name, take your turn.
Sam Tavana, owner of Kaizen Realty, and this is Alexander.
Alex Williams with Alexander Construction.
Thank you. If you'd like to give a presentation, that'd be fine, but otherwise we could just field some questions from us if that would be okay. Or basically, we're just looking for clarification on a handful of things.
Sure. This building is purchased to be a real estate office for Kaizen Realty. Currently, we're at Shoemaker Financial on West Street, moving hopefully into this. And the existing property has a drive-through which is of no use to us, and we're looking to expand that to have some workstations for our agents in a conference room to put that to good use. There is going to be no change to the front entry, the concrete steps that was a question. The lighting, I believe there's existing lighting that we had submitted on the parking lot that are, I don't have those in the pictures, but we can certainly provide those. On the back side, there are no lighting. We did not add anything because there was no existing, so we didn't want to complicate our process. But if the commission feels that there's some lighting needs to be on the back side, on the north side, we can certainly put that light fixture there as well.
Okay, thank you. I think the commission was okay with building colors and materials. Certainly the hardy plank is all suitable. But tell me about the brick. I guess it's a wainscoting and part of it, the plans for that.
That's the brick that's there. It'll remain in place, and there's a few items that need to be, some brick that are loose that just need to be resecured and tuck pointed. But the new siding is not going to affect the existing brick. It'll come down to where the existing brick currently is.
And remains, I think it's a used, isn't it? Used red right now.
Right.
Okay. Okay. And then on the lighting, thank you for your description, but just again, I'm just going to make some clarifications there. The parking lot is not lit in any way now, is that correct?
It is lit.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the building itself, are there existing fixtures to remain lit after the renovation?
On the exterior?
Yes.
Yeah, that's where those fixtures, I think they're pointed out with the red arrows.
Okay, I saw those as proposed fixtures, but I was curious if there's any existing fixtures.
The only existing fixtures we have is one on the upper right side, you see by the drive-through, and then one on the bottom left side. There was a signage by the previous bank, Triumph Bank, and they had a light fixture there, which we plan on replacing with the proposed fixture. The parking lot have, I believe, 4 tall pole, parking lot light fixtures. They remain and they're functional.
Okay.
And where are those? Do you remember?
There's a post, a light on a post here in this front bed. There's a light on a post in this bed. There's also a light on a post in this bed. And then there's also a city street light, right, pole light right here on the street as well. But I don't think there's anything back there.
No.
No, we don't, well, if you wouldn't mind submitting a plan to staff, or, so we could at least get an official lighting plan when the project's complete, where the fixtures exist and what those fixtures are, whether existing, parking lot, or that, so we have a good record of what the lighting, what we should expect to see with the lighting, changes or existing.
Sure.
Well, one other item I had is that the landscape is noted to remain as is. I would just like to make sure that if anything's damaged, it is replaced and cleaned up, and everything refreshed. I would imagine if you're doing this much to the building, you would refresh the landscape just the same, but just to have that included also as part of your package, please.
Okay.
Any other commission members have?
So I think we discussed in executive session that the light fixtures on West Street that are to go on the face of the building, it's our recommendation to remove those so that there's not any light bleed beyond your property line. If you already have street lights out there, I would assume that would be sufficient. So those two lights at the bottom of the screen, we would recommend that those be removed. And then just a clarification for me, I know there used to be a drive-through back there. Are you repurposing the drive-through? It appears that there's an island, 2 columns, and a canopy of sorts. Is the island being demolished, the columns being demolished, and the roof being demolished, and you're adding on, or are you repurposing that and expanding?
We're going to utilize the existing structure, so those columns will remain in place. And there'll be basically a wall built between the columns with windows in it. And on the, I guess I can show you the pointer. On this side of the structure, there'll be a door that exits onto the deck. And then we'll also increase the square footage that's under roof currently. Hard to make an exact line there, but there'll be a door, an exit door here on this side as well.
So will the island be removed?
The inner part will for sure, because of the so we can pour this slab inside of where the space is going to be enclosed. But we haven't discussed removing all of the island.
Do you know the distance from the island to the property line?
I think last time we measured it, it was over 12, 14 feet. It may be somewhere in that ballpark from here to here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was somewhere around 14 or 15 feet.
What about where it curves? That appears like it might be the narrowest part, you know?
Here?
Yeah.
I'd have to field measure it to get you an exact dimension, but
What's the minimum dimension that you reported, was it 10?
12.
Typical lanes are 12 foot. I think 14 foot for one-way traffic in parking lots typically is required, but I can't swear to that. Any proposed signage to avert cars from trying to exit the entrance there?
Yeah, I think would help if you put a no exit sign in that landscape area just to the top there, right in that area, just for the people aren't going out that way.
It's a bit of a blind corner.
Yeah. So if you put just a low sign or something, a directional sign saying no exit.
Okay.
And that's because you do have an entrance and exit off of West Street, right?
Yes, sir.
That's so there. Okay, fine. Yes.
Would you like for that direction sign to adhere to the direction sign requirements of the DOT ordinance?
Yes.
There's
Yes.
a minimum height.
Yes. Yeah. That'd be fine.
I believe there is a sign there already. I just can't remember what it says. But yeah, we'll conform to this code.
Going back to the conference room addition, I really think it's going to look funny if one of two things doesn't happen. If you don't completely demolish that island, or if you leave the island to continue it to the right, I guess that's to the south.
Continue the island to wrap around.
To wrap around.
The existing structure and touch the building right now currently has quote-unquote a curb along this elevation. So we can continue that curve to tie into the island.
Could you flip back to the site plan? Make it a little easier to discuss it. No.
There you go.
See, in that rendering or plan, they don't show those pillars being used with 18 foot off the property line. So it'd be an interesting dimension to see what the actual pillar for the canopy is in true dimension versus the addition. You see that detail?
I do.
So it appears there that the part of the canopy is remaining, but on the building elevation, it didn't quite look that way.
So you mentioned building a wall between the existing columns, and on this one, I guess it's to the top of the page, or what I think is the east dimension. It's the two columns sitting in the middle of the island. Is that going to be a part of the wall?
Yeah,
An exterior wall?
I don't know. I'm trying to remember if the way that the plan was drawn, but the way it lays in the field, those columns that are there will be where the wall is built between the columns. To me, it appears that the wall will be further toward the building than the actual columns, but there may be the plan may have been drawn a little out of scale on that part right here.
Is there, my question's for staff, is there any distance off that property line that we need to be concerned with? Other than for circulation on the site itself?
Are they meeting their setback requirements?
Well, the canopy was there, so a canopy is probably part of a primary structure, I would presume, as the footprint would stand in plan. Okay.
Yeah, it's not part of the building.
Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. We don't know. Drawing shows 18 from wall to property line.
I hesitate to try to make that judgment, not having the information that we need.
Okay.
To have specific requirements. The other thing, and I think I'm gonna get Bob to speak to the next issue.
Well, to the extent we're talking about changing the footprint or whatever, that's outside of our purview. It's going to change something that has to go before the planning commission. I'm not sure exactly where this discussion's going, but that's where it sounds like.
But I think we're trying to find out as much information as we can with the application that's before us. So we you know.
I agree, but don't think you can act on this application before.
Correct.
I had a question. Is this in Old Germantown or not? No. Okay. Okay. That says a lot.
How big is the addition? How many square feet is the conference room addition?
Should be 11.6. You have 11.6 by
Chairman,
Yes.
speaking the mic.
Oh,
It's 341 square feet.
everyone, please use your microphone.
Yeah, so approximately 30 feet by
It's 341 square feet.
341 square feet. So that actually bumps up I hadn't considered that when I was talking about the parking. Because that increases the size of the building footprint. Before the building footprint was 3,600 something. So now it's 4,000.
3636.
The other concern is the comments about the access for that driveway and how this addition is going to work with that existing curb line. That could cause a change in that whole site plan in that area, and that's what would trigger it going to the planning commission.
Question to staff. I'm not making any recommendations right now, but is there the potential to table this, send it to planning commission, and then we hear it? I can't remember the sequence. Or would we have to, I guess we, go ahead.
Yes, there is the option to do that, especially given the fact that the ordinance recommends that any application that requires both planning commission and design review commission action, that planning commission act first and then DRC.
Okay.
Very good. So it would be unwise to take the aesthetics of the building and be agreeable to everything we've discussed as a tentative approval and then based on planning's decision of the building footprint. That's not a wise move, chain of events.
I don't know if it's possible, and this is going to be a lot personal, because we don't have definite information right now, you could approve it based on what you have before you right now. And if what comes back changes because of the redesign and because of the comments that you made, at that point in time, we can make a decision whether it needs to go to the planning commission and then come back to you a second time for reapproval of the revised plan.
Well, knowing how comfortable we are with what we can approve, that's just as easy to do if we table it as well.
Yeah, I'm just giving you options.
Well, the addition would be a side yard, is that correct?
Yes, the addition would be into the side yard, yes.
Yes, so the side yard would, and it's what, C2, it would be, what, 10 feet or so? So, I mean, so the addition is reasonable as far as the regulations.
It is, and it's not the addition itself, it's the addition in the side yard that will impact that driveway.
Yes.
And that curve line that's in that area, making sure that you have adequate space, traffic to egress.
And potentially the number of parking spots.
Exactly the number of parking spots. That changes the footprint. Also, there was and if I'm mistaken, there was a recommendation from the applicant that because of the way the building taper on that side, that they may be able to redesign that area. I don't know. But anything of that nature could, have some impacts that we don't know about, and things that the planning commission may need to look at.
It is, let me ask a question to the applicant. Is removing that canopy an option? I mean, why would you leave it there?
You're talking about the drive-through?
Yeah, right, yeah.
I guess the way that it's situated now, it would be possible to remove it, but it's a existing structure that's there that could be utilized, so it would be a kind of a wasteful maneuver to remove it from the building.
Be utilized in what way?
A covered area for outdoor, for, to be outside of the existing footprint.
As I understand it, though, you're enclosing that to make it a conference room.
Correct.
They're utilizing an existing covered area to infill it and to expand it.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. I don't have a problem with the expansion. I just have a problem with those pillars out there and, just wondering why you would leave those other than?
What they're saying is they're not drawn in the right place, Ralph. They're actually inboard of where they're shown. They're actually within the walls of that exterior conference room. It's just not shown properly.
So there wouldn't be an overhang canopy there as they?
So there's no canopy there?
There is
Outside of the addition?
there's a applied canopy. There's a canvas applied canopy that's got aluminum framing that was, I guess it was in place for the second line of the.
For the
driveway.
teller area
There was
for the
a
bank,
second.
but we don't have plans to keep that canopy there. You know, that was for
We have
the
a
drive-through.
terminology issue at this point.
Yeah.
Well, as you can see, there's a lot of unknowns here because the application is not complete.
I do see, well, is there a pervious, impervious factor that comes into this as we add parking spots and footprint and everything else?
The parking isn't changing, the pervious surface wouldn't be changing, it'd just be how it's configured, because this is already pavement here, there.
Oh, I just mean if we start adding parking spots, does that start to become a factor?
Renovation.
It doesn't appear that to me either, but
The east elevation shows you exactly what that site will look like without the canopy and using this existing drive-through,
This being.
and this being the addition.
This would be the existing area, this would be the addition.
So there's no real overhang or anything. Well, let me ask you then this question. What is the dimensions of the new addition? Exactly.
11'6" by 29'8".
Yes. Is that it, or is it something different?
No, that's it.
Okay. So the rest of that, outside of that addition, goes away?
unfortunately, that's our assumption, because there's no true dimensions. No one can give us those at this point,
Yeah.
which makes it, guys, it
Well-
makes it very hard to do anything here, not knowing those answers, and you not
Yep.
knowing either.
The site
Addition
plan,
dimensions.
Elevation appears to be different. The site plan shows the
Shows it outside, the canopy outside,
elevation doesn't.
and the elevation doesn't. And which, I guess the question is, which is correct? Or we don't know.
I believe they're both correct. I believe this island is the issue as far as it being drawn
Outside?
outside of where it actually is. Should be more in line with this wall.
You guys understand that we can only look at what we're looking at, though?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Let me ask the staff a question. So with the addition, this needs to go to the planning commission?
Only if the addition changed and if there's an issue between where the building is located and where that curb and drive, and if there's going to have to be changes, meaning what we're looking at now is that drive, that aisle, if that has to come out, and this addition gets enlarged, then that's an issue. If what he's saying, the elevation is correct, and that island is inside the wall, then he should be okay. But I don't know which one is correct. I don't know if the site plan is correct or if the elevation is correct.
Okay, so what you're saying is it may or may not have to go to the planning commission.
Exactly.
Is that the only reason it would go before the planning commission?
The other issue is parking, because I think Sarah told you that this expansion was not taken into consideration in the parking calculation.
So does that mean it has to go to the Board of Zoning and Appeals?
It would depend on what we determine the parking. Because if they don't have enough spaces, yes, they will have to go to the Board of Zoning and Appeals to get a waiver on the number of parking spaces.
We're not trying to make this hard, are you?
Oh,
We're
I
just trying to
understand.
make sure that you get all
Can I
the
mention
correct
something to the
bases.
board?
Absolutely.
The focus for the last discussion has been on the addition one of the main primary objectives for us is to get the siding up on this building, just so we can at least make the building look more complete. If it's possible to try to handle this in a situation to where we don't have to, ultimately, if this doesn't get approved, we would like to ask or request that we get the approval to at least put the siding on the building and finish that part of the building so it's not an eyesore at the moment as the way it is currently.
So an application modification to change the site plan not to include the addition. Is that what I hear? Is that what every staff hears?
Just to clarify, are you asking to also put the siding on the addition or just on the building proper?
Well, ultimately, obviously, we want to have the addition approved. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose track or the thought that if anything wasn't, that we would still have the ability to close the building up and finish the exterior.
The addition, behind the addition, there are 2 additional parking spots that can be added. How do you get the laser? Right here?
Right here at the front.
Go ahead, Sheila.
This area right here can have 2 parking spots if,
I would suggest not having parking in that area, but, let me make a suggestion. If the goal here is to get the siding up on the building so that they can at least get into the building, and use the building, you may want to approve this in 2 parts. Approve it just for the modification of the existing building without the addition, and then they can come back and resubmit for the addition with, more detailed, information at that point in time.
I think I like that for the progress of the building, the applicant, and us as
I have
commissioners.
one comment to make. It would be in all of our best interests to find a way to approve this without putting the burden on them of having to go to the planning commission. Is that possible?
Yes, that's what we're going to try to
Well,
figure out right now.
It depends.
I would also, wherever this should go with the addition, suggest a survey and
Yeah.
some very accurate measurements for the addition, especially if it's a standalone application. Because we know we're not going to approve the addition tonight, but just moving forward, a tape measure and a survey crew is going to be the way to get that done. Okay, so,
My only question is, if we do that, does he have enough parking without the addition?
The answer has to be yes.
So minus the addition, the building footprint would not be changing. The previous use was a bank. A bank has the same parking requirement as a real estate office, which is being proposed. Now, per the code, it says that a bank is technically supposed to have 1 space for every 200 square feet of gross floor area. It did not have that. But you could also say that the intensity of the use, the intensity of the site, minus the addition, is not changing from how it was previously utilized.
sort of a grandfather clause then.
So,
It didn't conform before, and it doesn't necessarily conform now.
so we can do that? Or does it have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals or the Planning Commission? I mean, to make that kind of,
So that's a question for you. Yeah, a question for the attorney. Can they approve this, the parking?
The parking is not conforming today, and when it was a bank, and so they're not changing that. The parking requirements are the same.
Thank you.
Parking requirements are
She
the
felt
same
that.
for both a bank and a real estate office. So can they approve this based on the previous non-conforming? Parking? How long is the vacant?
I believe about a year.
Just under a year, you
It
say?
was 11 months.
Yeah.
11 months and 20 days.
I mean, I don't think there's a way to bring the parking, unless you shave off some square footage from the building.
Well, yeah,
It should definitely,
I have no problem with this. But on the other, what, I'm sorry.
Prior application, prior parking was approved, and this is, continuation of some reviews.
I think it's just a,
Hadn't been vacant for long enough time to really lose.
to lose his non-conforming status. Yes, I would agree with that. Yes, yeah, that sounds, yay, okay. There's a first, yeah.
with that discussion, you can see the constraints of an addition, obviously, of how we're even here to get approval on a non-conforming parking use, and then added more square footage will be that much more of a challenge for you. So from what I understand, we will entertain a motion this evening, if there's no further discussion, on the building as it stands with the aesthetic package in front of us, including windows, siding, paint colors, the provisions of the lighting. Just requesting a full plan of what fixtures exist and where they exist. There may be more, but I will entertain a motion to that degree.
A second.
Oh, I'm not making the motion, just requesting one.
I will make that motion
You will
as
make
long
it?
as it's clear. Clear for the record, is that enough clarification? I make a motion that we approve the application, deleting from the site plan the addition, and also showing all the existing light fixtures. And what else was there existing?
Removing the light fixtures from West Street.
You said lights.
Well, it's
At
there.
the bottom of the
No,
page.
it's not existing.
Removing the lights from the bottom of the page, isn't that what you said?
You want, remove the two light fixtures along West Street and approve, and we're also approving the hardy plank and the colors for the building.
And the windows and doors, presented the new windows and doors.
Yes. And do we have to have a and with the modification of the, what is it, the east elevation, not to show the expansion area? Yes, okay. Does that pretty well cover it? That's my motion.
Can we read back the motion so we
No,
know
you
what we're voting on? Who's taking the notes over there? How does the motion read now? I'd like to have the motion repeated and clarified.
Okay, the motion reads that the addition will be deleted and the site plan will be revised to show the deletion of the addition, and that includes the deck. There will be an updated lighting plan to show all existing lighting fixtures in the parking lot and on the building, and remove the lights from the West Street side. Also for the approval of the hardy plank siding and the colors proposed, as well as the windows and doors as proposed.
Correct.
Second the motion.
Very good. Please call roll.
Mr. Lanweir,
Yes.
Mr. Sherman, Mr. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Chairman Bruns.
Yes. You have your approval to continue putting it together, but not the
Thank you.
addition.
Thank you.
So, yes.
And,
Thank you.
You might want to look at, I don't know if you can move that addition laterally, so you can avoid the planning commission in that curve area. I think that's the issue, right?
Parking.
Well, I understand there may be some other factors.
Well, I think the deck, if we get rid of the deck or move the deck on the other side, that probably will solve the curve.
It may very well, yes. I mean, those are some of the things,
So if we remove the deck,
yes.
would you guys be
It's
okay?
not-
And
It won't
would
be in
you-
our hands at that point.
Yeah, as long as you have enough room in there for whatever the requirement is as far as the driveway, as long as you have enough room in there, either changing the deck on the other side or sliding the expansion area down.
I would
Yeah,
I would
that
make a solid
That would
justification for
hopefully
parking.
avoid you having
Is
to
what I
go
would
to the
focus on.
planning commission. That's another step.
It is.
The north side.
Staff can help you with all those
Yeah.
if, ands, and buts, thens. All right, is there any old business or new business before us? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you all.